Welcome to our session and thank you for joining us. Today, we'll present how to leverage big data and computational social science for student success. Today's speakers is that I have the pleasure to be joined by Dr. Sandra Matz, Assistant Professor and Computational Social Scientist at Columbia University. She has received many awards, among which she was recognized as the top 100 most influential data scientists in UK and top 30 thinker under 30. So we're very lucky to have her. And she will give us an overview on how we can use big data within the context of education, particularly retention and student well-being. I am Alice Dinu. I am co-founder as well as VP of Student Success and Research at Ready Education. Ready Education is the leading mobile platform across higher ed, and we're working with over 350 partners. And I'll cover our research results in collaboration with Sandra and her team at Columbia on how mobile app data can impact and predict retention. So Sandra, I will let you begin.
Good morning, afternoon, evening, or whatever time it is that you're tuning in. Thank you so much for joining us for the session. My name is Sandra Matz and I'm a professor of organizational behavior at Columbia University. I've been working with Ready Education for the past year and I'm super excited that we can share some of the insights that we gained throughout this process with you today. Now, before I'm handing over to Alice Dinu from Ready Education, who will say a little bit more about the specifics of our collaboration and what we found, I want to take a few minutes to share some broader thoughts on how I believe technology can help us push education into the 21st century. Now, I'm a psychologist by training, but over the years, I've become more and more interested in computational methods and the idea that we can use technology as a window into people's everyday lives. And as psychologists, we're lucky to be working on one of the most interesting questions there is, like why do people behave in the way that they do? Why do some people socialize more than others? And what are the factors in their environments that encourage them to do so? Or why are some people more prone to developing mental health issues? And why is it that they enter, say, a depressive episode in that specific moment, but not another? And most relevant to the specific context, like why do students decide to discontinue their studies? And what is it that they struggle with the most? And for us to answer these questions properly, we actually need two types of information. So first, what are the personal characteristics that make it more or less likely that a person behaves in a particular way, right? So does it matter for people's decision to discontinue their studies that they're first generation students or that they belong to a specific ethnic minority? And then second, what are the contextual factors that shape people's behavior in the moment? Like how well is a student embedded in their cohort? What does their experience on campus look like? And you can imagine that the list of questions that we can ask here is pretty much endless. Now, having access to that information is critical if we want to predict behavior. But it's oftentimes difficult to get hold of it, right? So you can't just dispatch a team of observers who monitor students' everyday action and every step they take. It's not just prohibitively expensive, but it's also incredibly intrusive and would probably ruin the student's experience altogether. Except that we can actually do that to some extent by observing the digital traces they leave as they interact with digital devices. And Alice is going to say more about the specific application of Ready Education that they have developed for students and universities, but the basic idea here is that we can get a glimpse of what a student's experience on campus looks like. And that information is incredibly powerful when it comes to predicting, for example, whether or not a student is having a great time and is thriving, or whether they are currently struggling to integrate and might have a higher likelihood to drop out eventually. And one of the things that actually bothers me the most in today's tech world is that we're using these incredible skills of computer scientists, of engineers, to optimize things like search engines or making sure that you're going to watch every single cat video that Facebook wants you to watch, right? So these companies are incredible at understanding their customers and at understanding what is it that they want and need at any given point in time. And they have a great sense of when is it that their users are going to abandon their platform, and even better solutions for how to bring them back and better integrate them such that they continue using their services. And I'm not suggesting that you should become the next Facebook of education, but like the question is like, why aren't we using some of these technologies to predict, for example, if a student is struggling and likely to drop out? Like, why aren't we using the same technologies to diagnose what we could do as educators to improve the experiences of every single student such that they can make the most of their time at university? Because as you, I'm sure know, like students dropping out is not just costly for universities, but it also ruins students' lives by leaving them with a ton of debt and also with this notorious feeling of failure. So the project with Ready Education is really just a first step in that direction. If Facebook can use technology to get you to buy things that you don't need, so can we to make sure that every student gets the attention that they deserve. And with that thought, I'm going to hand over to Alice to walk you through the project that we've been working on over the last year.
Thank you. My name is Alice Dinu, and I'm the VP of Student Success and Research at Ready Education, and I'll present the results of our research and collaboration. To start, I would like to give you context. Ready Education wanted to tackle the communication and engagement challenge through this student success framework to drive repeatable student outcomes like retention, student well-being, and engagement. This framework is currently being used by over 350 institutions, from community colleges to four-year, from small to large, private to public. The goal of the framework was to build a sustainable and holistic approach to keep your students' community engaged and retained. And we conducted research with Sandra and her team at Columbia on the efficacy of this framework and how student behavior is a center of retention. The first layer of the framework, as well as data set, we fundamentally believe that it's crucial to reduce informational barriers that we create by having hundreds of web pages that students need to navigate, and it's left to them to disseminate noise versus signal. So the first step is that we've done is to centralize all essential campus information into a seamless experience where students can get events, services, clubs, and much more, all within just 2 clicks. There is also crucial academic and financial information that lie behind systems like the LMS and the SAS. And we natively integrate with them to adhere to the centralization ethos and bring these informations like courses, grades, financial aid status at students' fingertips. We are living in a social world where information alone is not enough. Community is a crucial component. And it's interesting to observe that today's students' first social interactions are digital first, and then they translate into an in-person interaction. And there is research that emphasizes how sense of belonging, peer-to-peer connectivity are crucial to retention and student well-being. So this is the reasons why we added this community layer where students can interact, ask questions, and make friends. And I will talk how this particular layer is now able to measure how connected students are and its impact on retention. It's interesting to note that information and community are the building blocks of creating an engagement loop. We increase engagement and build healthy engagement habits with students where they can access information on the app daily, as well as keep connected with their friends. We are also interested to measure digital engagement, but as well expand to an in-person engagement. And as we move from the engagement layer to the assessment layer, we wanted to measure attendance at services and at events at scale. And what's unique about that is that we also wanted to measure student satisfaction rate on all these campus experiences and also its impact on retention. The next layer is intervention. And interventions don't work if we don't capture students' attention. And all those building blocks were meant to just do that, capture students' attention. Because when we have enough engagement data, we can actually tailor and personalize our interventions. And now we can use all that data across the pyramid and actually engage with students who are not engaged. All those components make up of the student success infrastructure to drive student outcomes like engagement, well-being, and retention. And because of the data across all those pillars, which is a digital footprint that students leave, we wanted to understand the impact of the framework on retention. And what we've done is that we conducted a longitudinal research in collaboration with Sandra's team, as well as in collaboration with our institutional partners. And we followed freshmen for a period of 4 years, and we wanted to see how their digital footprint, if it can predict retention as well as impact retention. And here is what we found. When we looked at the freshman cohorts and we wanted to simply look at students who have the platform and students who don't have the platform, we found that app users of freshmen have a probability of 84% of retaining year over year, while non-app users had a probability of retaining of only 16%. So what this means is that digital engagement on how students are engaging with campus resources as well as campus community actually have a retention improvement of over 425 compared to students who are not on the platform. So students who are not on the platform, just the fact that they're not engaging digitally can be and is an early signal alert as a retention risk. So we want to dig a little bit further and actually see if the digital footprint that students leave on the app alone can actually predict retention. And the answer is yes, it can. Actually, only one single semester of app engagement data was 40% better at predicting retention than our typical traditional prediction institutional models. So through our partnership with Columbia and its computational social scientists, we created 3 prediction models. The first model was an institutional prediction model that includes data sets like GPA, are you Pell eligible, are you first generation, etc. And we're able to predict if students stay or drop out at 69% accuracy level. Then we build a second model that includes only app engagement data and all the data of the framework that we just discussed. And what we found is that behavior alone is actually more predictive, particularly at 83%. And when we combine both models, the app engagement data as well as the institutional data, the prediction rate went up to 88%, which is quite phenomenal because now we're able to identify students who are at risk at a higher accuracy level. And all of that, it's possible only because students actually use the app. A technology that isn't being used is just not helpful. And this is why our team is focused to ensure that you have high student adoption across the platform. On average, across 350 institutions, we're able to onboard 90% of freshmen within first 3 weeks and 80% of the entire enrollment within the first semester. So, which is quite phenomenal, and what that leads to an unbelievable amount of engagement data. So now I want to unpack the reasons why we're getting those results. And our first stop will be around summer engagement and its impact on retention, and how the first three layers of the framework, particularly centralization, integration, and community, um, are able to improve the student experience. We all know that freshmen are more prone to higher levels of stress since they haven't formed their social support groups, and college is an unknown environment with new expectations. One way that we help students transition from high school to college is first help them familiarize with campus resources before they arrive on campus, like orientation calendars, their student leaders, and other important information. Most impactful, we help freshmen build social connections before their orientation starts. We have countless of stories of students introducing themselves on the campus wall and making friends. And we wanted to see what is its impact on retention. So what we found is that freshmen who joined the platform during the summer period before their first day of class are twice more likely to retain than students who are not on the platform. So freshmen on the app benefit of those early social connections that they facilitate through that digital engagement and their increased familiarity of campus resources. Next, what happens after orientation? We still need to keep our students engaged throughout the semester and academic year. So I'll focus particularly on how engagement and the assessment layer play a significant role on retention. One of the key challenges of campuses is a fragmented student experience. How we keep students engaged is by connecting them to the right information, helping them find the right resource like events and services on campus. In addition, we also complete the loop by measuring the student experience through attendance tracking at events and services like advisors or financial aid deployments. Most importantly, we capture students' feedback at scale to improve our services and listen to students' voice by taking the campus pulse in real time. So we learned that freshmen that attend 5 events and more a semester have a probability of 95% of persisting year over year. What this means is that their drop rate is 4 times lower than students who never attended any event. What we found is that app engagement actually drives 2.5 times higher event attendance than other promotional strategies like posters and social media. In addition to attendance, we're also interested to assess what is the impact of satisfaction on retention. So the traditional way of gathering student satisfaction is through a one-time long survey where we yield about 25 to 35% response rate. And the survey is meant to assess student satisfaction that sometimes of activities that happened a month ago. So what we've done is that we flipped the model and we focused on short campus pulse interactions in real time, particularly at the point of service. Instead of asking kind of one big survey, we would ask multiple times throughout the semester. And we're able to increase the student response rates from 25% to 90%. And this is consistently across 1 million interactions that happened across our platform in the past year from 2019 to 2020. And one of the things that we found is that these microassessments actually correlate with retention. We found when students are rating 3 stars and below at particular services like advisors or financial aid, these students have a probability of dropping out between 40 to 45%. And students who are retaining higher have a lower probability of dropping out. What this tells us is that when we put the students at the center of the experience, they would tell us how they're feeling. And we can use their feedback to improve their experience. So really, in short, these Uber microstar satisfaction rates are a form of early alert. where we flipped the traditional model from waiting for the staff or faculty to observe and flag a student, where we put the student in the driving seat. Next, I would like to really focus on the impact of virtual communities on retention. And this cannot be more important as we're living in a social distance world, and we still need to create those experiences that make students feel connected. So through our partnership with Columbia, we also wanted to measure the health of our campus social network and its impact on retention. So we have taken a methodology called the centrality methodology, where this is a methodology that has been used by other social networks like Facebook and Instagram to measure the health of their social network characteristics. And we wanted to bring this model to higher ed to see if it's applicable to retention. So what you see on the left is a representation of one of our campus social graph, where the blue dots are the students who retained and the yellow dots are the students who are dropping out. The lines in between are the frequency of messages that students send to one another. And we built a centrality score to identify if students are isolated or if they're hyper-connected. So for instance, we found that students like Emma and Shane that are close to the central hub of their campus social graph have a higher centrality score and also have a higher probability of retaining, specifically at 92%. And for instance, students who are in the periphery of the social graph, like Jude, that have a lower centrality score also have a lower probability of retaining. So what's interesting is that for the first time, we can measure how socially connected are to their campus community, and we can also potentially identify students who are isolated. And we have proven that virtual community on the app can socially connect students as well as it's associated with retention and continued enrollment. So I wanted to thank you, Sandra, for sharing all the insights with our EDUCAUSE community and for the phenomenal collaboration that we have. And I wanted to thank you all for staying with us to learn how big data can improve retention. If you want to learn more about our research, as well as get a full retention report, please email us at research@readyeducation or submit a request at readyeducation.com/retention report. I'm also happy to have a one-on-one session to talk about virtual engagement and retention. It's always an interesting conversation. So I want to thank you and have a wonderful day.